everybody, Karen Roby and Tiernan Ray here for ZDNet, talking today about how cell phone and machine learning together can help detect COVID-19. And Tiernan, the testing, of course, since this started has been an issue, to make sure we have enough tests, and it's been a problem scrambling to get enough tests out there for the people that need them. So talk a little bit about this. This is really interesting, just the thought of how a cell phone could possibly detect whether or not you're, positive or negative for the coronavirus. Explain.
You're absolutely right, Karen. There's been a real problem globally, actually, not just in the US, with getting availability of tests. The most common test is what's called a quantitative PCR, stands for polymerase chain reaction. This is a process that's been around for 35 years that basically takes some nucleic acid and amplifies it to see, is there a presence of the DNA or the viral RNA of the virus in your system. So this is the gold standard, and it's highly reliable, but the problem is it requires an expensive machine, costs thousands of dollars, called a thermocycler, that has to be plugged into wall power in a laboratory. So it's not real convenient if you want to try and get tests out to people. So there's all these new testing approaches coming out of the woodwork, and we found a really interesting one. We corresponded with a professor. His name is Ashish Priye, and he is in the Department of Chemistry and Environmental Engineering at the University of Cincinnati. And he has been for years working on refining a method that would be really simple, that would use a smartphone and just a very simple kit. Basically, what you do is you take a blood sample, you take saliva, you put it in a beaker, you put it in a little polymer vial, and then you expose it to some light, and you heat it up to about 67 degrees Celsius, it'd be like around 150 degrees Fahrenheit. So you heat it once, very simple one-step heating procedure, and then you point the smartphone at this beaker and you see what color does the solution change. If it changes one color, that means, yep, it's positive. If it changes another, no, there's no viral RNA. So this would be a way to, in the field, just have a smartphone and a simple kit and not have this expensive thermocycler that you need for the qPCR. You wouldn't have to be in a lab even.
Wow, and you wouldn't have to have your nose swabbed either, which there'd be a lot of people happy about that,
Yeah,
right?
right. You can get very simple samples. You can take a blood sample from someone, you can take a saliva sample, and you don't even have to prepare it in the same complex way you do for qPCR.
Wow. And then talk about the machine learning behind it as well, a little bit more.
Right, so he's actually been refining this for years, Karen. It's amazing. The first version he did was based on fluorescence, where you point this light at the sample, and as I said, it changes color, and then you use the smartphone's camera to see precisely what color it is. And you have to measure it, even though you can see it with the naked eye, you want to see what color changes. So now he's come up with an even simpler method, which is without adding these fluorescent dyes, you can see just based on the cloudiness of the solution. If you have the viral RNA present in your saliva or your blood, then when you do this little heating step, there's a cloudiness that builds up. It's the interaction of ions. So you can just see by eyeing the thing that it's a positive or negative. But again, you want to measure it. So what he's doing is he's saying, how can we use the smartphone to precisely measure how much of this viral RNA we're seeing in the sample to really be sure if it's a positive or negative? And it's not easy to do because the smartphone software has to know what is the right amount of cloudiness that indicates a positive. So what he's doing is he's using these, what are called convolutional neural networks, which they're using a lot for image analysis to recognize faces, recognize movie stars. For years now, he's developing a way that you can use this neural network to test, is there a positive? So he's training it, what does the right amount of what's called precipitate or turbidity, this creamy white, milky white substance in the solution, how much of that is yes, how much is no? And that's what he's training this machine learning to look at through the smartphone camera.
Very interesting. And what is there a timeline or expected when this would be able to be actually rolled out, all over the world, I guess?
Right, so this is basic research. So Priye himself is not going to make kits. What he's trying to do is come up with a prototype and then hopefully partner with someone like a laboratory, maybe a Quest Diagnostics, someone of that nature who would mass produce these kits. And he's hoping to have a prototype by the end of this year. So it's not clear if it will immediately resolve a testing bottleneck, but depending on A, how long COVID is with us before a vaccine, and B, how much COVID returns in future years, this is something that maybe starting next year could be real to treat future incidences, or rather to diagnose future incidences.
Yeah, and I guess that's the goal, Tiernan, is to increase testing. May not help right now, like you said, in the bottleneck that we're in at this very moment, but just for down the road, as expected, that there will be, more waves of this, unfortunately, that we're having to deal with. But really interesting to see, of course, how technology is playing a part and hopefully making things easier for us as we move through this. Well, really interesting stuff. I know you've got the full article up there on ZDNet, of course, and we certainly hope all of you will check it out there, and we appreciate you watching.